Hi everyone, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today I'm here to introduce a new project for the channel for 2025. And this is an applique project, one of my favorites. You recall last year we did Miss Kelly, and this was a pattern by Erin Russek, and we purchased this pattern and we used it for our project last year. Well, I had so much fun with that I picked another one of Erin's patterns to do for 2025. And the pattern this year is called Miss Karen. I'm going to project a picture up here of the pattern itself and or the pattern with the order information right off of Etsy so you can see what it looks like. This was available just the other day. It's $10 for the pattern. If you're interested in doing a sew-along, I think this is going to be good even for I would say an experienced beginner. I think if you've never done applique before, it could be a little challenging, but if you've done any kind of applique at all, I think this is quite doable. Now, when you order the pattern from Etsy, what you're going to get is you're going to get a digital download, and that's going to come to you. I seem to recall it came as an email, and then you click on it. I think that's the way. Sometimes you can order digital downloads and it'll give you the option to print it right then and there, but most of them send you an email. And I've never had any problem ordering any of Erin's patterns, so that's really good. When you get it, you're going to get a file, and she gives you instructions in that file about how much to enlarge it and print it. And I'll tell you, when I did the one for Miss Kelly, I was going to take it someplace and have it printed because I think this one was at 400%. But it was going to cost me more to do the printout in black and white than the pattern cost, and I just couldn't see that. So I figured out how to print it from my regular home printer in separate pieces like this, and then just tape them together. And I think that, pull this over, I think you can see here how I have taped this all together. And this is going to be what this pattern looks like. Now, you will need to trim these up on the sides because your printer is not going to print right to the edges, and then fit them together the way it's appropriate. And I did find that when I got, there's like 6 pieces around the outside for that center flower, and here's a picture of what it looks like. I cut the center flower out and placed it separately because it just got to be a little bit of a headache to put them all together, but that worked fine. Not a problem. You know, a lot of times when there's printing, there's a little bit of distortion in it, and that just kind of negates dealing with that at all. Okay, so one of the differences in the pattern that we're going to use this time versus the pattern we used before, so there's bigger pieces in the one we are using this year. Last year's pattern had some tiny little pieces that were a little more challenging than I wanted to do for this year, and it had a lot more colors. I mean, we've probably got a dozen different fabrics in this, both the colors and patterns. In the pinks, for example, we've got a bunch of pinks, and here we've got 4 different kinds just in that. So this one is a little more simple in design. It's got more repetition, fewer fabrics. As a matter of fact, here are our fabrics. We've got 5 fabrics, plus we'll have to have a background fabric. And I'm going to use just a plain white fabric like I did on Miss Kelly. And then here are our fabrics. We've got 3 different greens. And I tried to use her creation as the guide. The colors in this particular project were very vibrant, and all the colors just really had a wow factor. The fabrics in this one were more subdued, except for the pink that she used in this portion of the flower. Can you see that? No, you can't. In this portion of the flower right here. And I originally picked a very, very vibrant, almost glow-in-the-dark pink for that. And I got it home and it just looked like it was too much. There was too much difference between that super vibrant pink and the muted colors that we had to go with it. So I took this center color here fabric. I still had plenty of it left, and I'm going to be using it for the pink in this project. So in addition to that pink, we also have kind of a muted, I would call it a golden mustard color. It's a yellow, but it's got a little bit of brown. It's got a little bit of green almost in it. So kind of that color is going to go with it. It's a very close match to what she was using in hers. And then I picked out 3 greens, and they're all, I think, a little muted, a little subdued. We've got a light green, mossy green with a little lighter dot in it. We have a green which is kind of a textured, looks a little bit like linen in the printed design. Same color family. And then I have this darker green with a light green and almost teal color dragonfly printed on it. So I thought that would be very interesting in this. So we've got the 3 greens, a yellow, and a pink. So fabric choices are really whittled down, and that's going to help us with this. Now, after getting my pattern together and seeing what size it is and what we're looking at and so forth, then I decided I was going to try what I thought was the most difficult element of this. Now, it's going to be challenging to get all the petals in the center of the design here and then place them all on that circle. But I think that that's just simply a matter of measuring very carefully and then adjusting as we go. It may be that this circle ends up being just a little bit bigger than it is on this diagram, just to be able to fit everything together very nicely. So to me, the most difficult part of this pattern are these scallops right here. So before I bring that to you, I want to make sure that it doesn't require some specialized or expert skill to be able to do it. So I quickly put together a couple of pieces just to make sure that we could do it. And here's a piece of the pink that will go right here. And then there's a yellow piece that fits right underneath it. And then, of course, the green. So as you can see, that was kind of my test run. You know, a lot of times I'm talking about blocks, and I always try a block to make sure I like the way it goes together, the way it looks when it's done before you cut all the pieces. So this is my way to kind of test it out before I commit to doing it and finding out that it's just very frustrating, because our theme this year is to enjoy it, not be frustrated with it. And so that was my thinking behind that. Now, beyond that, this quilt is primarily leaves, and we've done leaves before, and those will come out of the 3 green fabrics. And then we've got, excuse me, the air's a little dry in here today. Beyond that, we've got lots of vines, and most of the vine, well, we've got 2 kinds of vines. We've got straight vines and we've got curving vines. So we'll probably do all of our vines in bias just to make that easy and make them interchangeable. Now, pattern pieces. How did I go about that? Well, here's the way I looked at it. When I thought about pieces that would only be used once, I said, well, we can use any kind of material we want to use. So in that situation, we don't have anything on here that's used once except maybe this little circles here in the middle. So what I've done is I've taken heat-proof mylar, and we've talked about that before. You can find it at Amazon or probably in your quilt store. And I took this and started making pieces. For example, I started in the middle with the circle, and I drew out the big circle, and in the middle I drew out the smaller circles. It's my intention to make the big circle, take it out, cut it for the little circles. And as I said, we may have to adjust those a little bit because we have to put all those petals in there. So I just made one of those. And then for the little petals here that go around, I made, how many did I make? I think I made 8 of those. I think I made one for each one. And I think that in doing that, I cut them exactly the size of the pattern. And I think what we're going to go back and do is we're going to go back and cut off maybe a 1/16 of an inch of each one of those, so that by the time we fold the fabric over them, they're going to fit in a little bit better. And then I also made patterns of the other pieces. So for example, I made this little piece here. There's the pattern, and I just extended it a little further so that we can drop in the other pattern piece. And it would be nice if I could find it, but I don't see it. Here it is right here. So there's one pattern piece and then the other one, and where it fits right over it. And that will go here. And then I have the leaves. And what I did was I tested out the leaves, and a lot of them are the same. They repeat themselves. There's a circle for that and the circle for that. And then leaves. So I created a set of left leaves and right leaves. 3 lefts, 3 rights. And then I marked on each leaf how many we needed. Now they don't seem to be, I thought I had this marked somewhere. Let me check my other sheets. Bear with me just a second. Yep, I did. So I took each section and divided them up. There's the 3 right leaves, there's the 3 left leaves. And then I randomly checked to make sure that it matched. So for example, I think this is this section probably over here. It's one of these two. I think it's this one here. So here's where I cut it from, and then I tried this. L7 would be this one to make sure it was the same, and they're the same. So that helps us greatly to be able to cut fewer templates and be able just to make as many as we need. Now, because this is the L1, we need 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. So then on each piece, I marked down how many we needed. So the L7, we need 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1. We need 4 of those. But the L3, which is this one, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. So we know how many we need. And there doesn't seem to be a big difference between whether they sit right or left. So we're not going to worry about those. There's a slight difference, but not really enough to worry about. If you wanted to take the time and do half of them one way and half of them the other way, and you could keep track of them, which is going to be your challenge, you could do that. So we've got our leaves, We've got our center pattern, we've got our petals, and we've got our pieces for our flowers. And those were a little more difficult to cut because they are shaped very specifically. And we'll talk more about how you make those when that time comes. But that was my biggest concern, is whether we were going to be able to make those flowers come together with both concave and convex curves. Okay, so we've got our pieces, our templates cut, we've got our fabric selected, they've been pre-washed and pressed. And like I said, I tested a couple of them just to make sure they were going to work. So our next step is going to be finding our background fabric. And like I said, I'm going to do this on white, so it's a good match or companion to this. But you don't have to. You could put this on any kind of background that you saw fit, that you thought would go with the fabrics that you choose for the applique. And that could be just a different color solid. It could be something with a background. I think it probably would look best on a fabric that did not have a bold design, because a bold design is going to take away from the work you're putting into it. But something that had a tiny little, maybe tone on tone, or a little small pattern in there that if you get up really close you can see it, but if you stand back away it kind of just becomes one color. That's going to probably be your best choice. So when we meet next time, I'll have my background fabric out, and then I'm going to show you how I transfer the design from the paper to the background. And we're going to be using the water-soluble or air-soluble markers. Again, we are using the heat-proof Mylar so we can iron our fabric right on here. I'm going to be using a liquid starch, but you could also use a spray starch if you wanted to, or you could try to do it without it. It's going to be more difficult without it, so just keep that in mind. And I will be using a little small light box to help me place designs and make sure that when I get ready to put them onto the fabric, the project itself, that we lined it up correctly. I think that's going to be very helpful, and these are very inexpensive on when you order them online. I think that this one probably was in the $20–25 range. And you can get more expensive ones, you can get bigger ones, just whatever fits your needs and your budget. Now I do have a translucent mat that sits on top of it that I can cut. I don't know that I'm going to need that for this particular project, but I do use it for others. And I have a little project board that I'll probably use to keep track of extra pieces, and then be able to, as we make all these leaves, be able to pin them in place so that they're easily distinguished one between the other. Because once you make a piece and you take the plastic out to make the next one, if it's a leaf and they all look very similar, it's going to be very hard to keep track of which one that is. Now for the flower pieces, you obviously know, but when you're talking about these leaves, that's going to be a little difficult. So we may try to figure out a way to keep track of those here as well. I think that's about it that I wanted to cover today. The only piece that I don't have cut as of right now is this center flower pattern. It's kind of a scalloped edge circle. And my thought process on that was that I probably did not need to make that out of heat-proof Mylar because I only have to make one. And I'm thinking about either making it out of either a cardstock material, which would be challenging, or maybe even making it out of a couple of layers of freezer paper may be our better option. We only have to make one, and then we don't need to use that again. So I'm finding it difficult to justify the expense of making a pattern that big. That's going to take up the better part of a whole sheet of Mylar for one. So we may look at a different way to do that. I'm very excited about this project, and I hope you are too, and you'll choose to sew along with us either in this particular pattern, or maybe you might want to check out another one of Erin's applique patterns to work with. She's got a lot of really pretty things. It just depends on what is attracted to you and draws your interest in. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Be sure to share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel, and if you're interested in supporting us, additionally, please look into memberships that we have available. They will allow you to see this project and others as soon as the videos are produced and put out on YouTube. You don't necessarily have to wait till their scheduled time. Thanks so much again, and next time we're going to get started on this. See you then.